really the thing that spurred me was just that first conversation where it's like, I have more than nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And nothing sometimes is better than an even worse case scenario, which is debt. If you were quite a bit in debt, you would be thrilled to have nothing.
Right.
Only nothing as opposed to less than nothing. So it was reframing, which I think is always super helpful. And it was conversation. So it was me not avoiding the issue, but sitting down and looking at it.
Hey, dear listeners, we need to let you know that Kevin and Stephanie offer investment advice through Private Advisor Group, which is a federally registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations to any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. Now let's get on with the show. This is Take Back Retirement, the show that's redefining retirement for women. Retirement is an old-fashioned cultural concept. We want to reclaim the word so you can make it your own. I'm Stephanie McCullough, financial planner and founder of Sophia Financial, where our mission is to reduce women's money stress and empower them to make wise, holistic decisions so they can get back to living their best lives. Kevin Gaines is my longtime colleague with deep knowledge in the technical stuff, investments, taxes, and retirement plan rules. He's a little bit geeky and quantitative. I'm a little bit touchy-feely and qualitative. Together, through conversations and interviews, we aim to give you the information and motivation you need to move forward with confidence. We're so glad you're here. Coming to you semi-live from the beautiful West Lakes Office Park in suburban Philadelphia, this is Take Back Retirement with me, Stephanie McCullough, and my co-host Kevin Gaines of Sophia Financial and American Financial Management Group. Say hello, Kevin.
Hello, Kevin.
Today, we are privileged to have the next in our occasional series called Real Retirement Stories, where women in midlife and better share the stories of their own personal retirement. And for those of you listening in audio only, I am using air quotes around the word retirement as we always do. Our guest today is Diane di Costanzo. Diane is a chief content officer, a brand and content strategist, an editor, writer, and reporter. And she recently, as she will tell us, retired from her full-time corporate work. She was the VP and chief content officer at Foundry 360, a division of Dotdash Meredith, which is now called People Inc. As a magazine editor, she has worked at and written for most of the major media companies. We're talking about Esquire, Self, Martha Stewart Living, Healthy Living, Millie, and Paw Print. She's an adjunct professor of media studies at NYU and often speaks on industry panels and at conferences. Let's jump into our conversation with Diane. Diane di Costanzo, welcome to Take Back Retirement.
Thank you, Stephanie.
I'm so happy to have you here. You know, we love this occasional series called Real Retirement Stories when we find a woman who has retired in some way or other. You know, we try to take a broader definition of that term, and they're willing to get on the podcast and talk about it. We get so excited. So tell us a little bit about where you are in life right now and what you're doing.
So I am about a year and a half retired. I have worked my entire career as a journalist, in the last years, a financial journalist. So that's where you and I, Stephanie, had the good fortune of meeting each other. I interviewed you for a couple of stories, I think. And I continue to do that work freelance. So I'm lucky. I feel that when I jumped out of my big corporate job, I had work that I wanted to do and could do, ways to employ myself. So it wasn't as if I were falling off a retirement cliff. I had both the income and sort of the purpose to my days.
Which is great. But as you wrote about in an article for AARP, your timing of retirement didn't work so well.
Yes, that is true. So I retired in April of 2024, and my husband and I embarked on I called it a big, audacious adventure. This is something that I now when I read about retirement, people often do in that first sort of honeymoon phase of retirement. You want to really celebrate it in a way that ticks something off your bucket list or otherwise makes you feel as if you're celebrating this new chapter in your life. So we traveled for a total of 4.5 months. We have a son who lives in Thailand. So we traveled in Asia and then spent an awful lot of time in East Africa as well. Traveling cheaply, and traveling overland as much as possible. We'd done this as backpackers in the 1980s. So we were revisiting something we'd done together when we were first married. All of that was very happy. But then as we were starting to consider coming back to the US, so this would have been end of February 2025, the economy all of a sudden started sending some very bad signals. So you too know more than most people probably that what had looked like a pretty rosy economic picture, at least from where I was looking at it from Kenya, say, it was not that, and it got worse. And I imagine you had some conversations with people around the day that was referred to as Liberation Day, I think is what it was called. I think that's when the markets anyway really started to get rocky. That marked exactly a year since I had been retired.
Oh.
And the sort of question that my editor asked me to explore in the article that you referred to is, did I retire at the exact wrong time? With one economic picture in mind. And then it really turned on me and others because I happened to turn 65 at the very crest of this wave of retirees. I think in the year, I'm 66 now, but in the year I turned 65, it might have been the most Americans turning that age ever. So I really was in a cohort of a lot of people. Obviously, people retire at all different ages, but if you just looked at that as sort of the classic retirement age, there were others in I called it leaky financial boat, or it felt that way.
Yeah, for sure.
So because you made a reference to 65 being that retirement age, why did you decide to, as you call it, retire? Was it because you hit this magical number, or you just said, it's time?
It's a good question, Kevin, and it has to do with marriages. Marriages don't always make sense. But in this case, my husband really wanted to retire. He wanted to do this kind of travel again. I would have been happy working a few more years, but when I looked at it, I thought he wants to go on a big adventure with me and we can retire. We had come to a place, at least as far as the retirement planning part of our lives, we'd come to a place where we thought, this is safe, our money will last. We can retire now.
So let's take a tiny little detour here because when we were preparing for this, Diane, you used a phrase that I really love and I want to dig into. You said you believe in radical transparency when talking about money. What does that mean and why?
I do. I was the editor of a financial magazine for women called Millie. In reading both about money in general, but also behavioral finance, I know the two of you have just talked about that in your podcast. I'm super interested in how not talking about money in families, among husbands and wives, with parents who might be leaving this world. There's lots and lots of ways that people would be better served by more transparent money conversations. Mm-hmm. And if I did anything right in my career, it was when I was managing people, I really encouraged salary transparency. Knowing that, and this is again my belief, that women, I think, are sometimes paid less because they actually don't know what to ask for. And they don't know what to ask for is because nobody talks about it. And the people with whom you are negotiating a salary aren't necessarily going to open the purse strings for you. If you can get women around you, the people that are in your professional network, to share their experiences, even their salaries, or let's just say compensation packages, because it's not always about the salary, mm-hmm. then I think we're all better served. So I started with that. And then it's sort of refreshing that, for instance, another article I just wrote was about a wedding budget for my daughter. And instead of, I'd read so many sort of missteps around not having good conversations in advance. And that meant that the daughter, say the bride to be, had in her mind that she was going to receive X amount or could spend X amount. And that really too late actually wasn't the case. So I said to my daughter, this is the amount. And I published it, that number in the magazine. I'd happily say it. If you want me to, I said, this is what we can give you. We're going to give it to you in 2 tranches because we don't want to pay nobody needs to pay gift tax on this. So we'll do it legally, but also intelligently. And they'll get half this year and half next year. That's me practicing being very transparent about money.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so into this idea of the more that women talk about money, the more we become comfortable with it, the more we realize we're not alone in some of our struggles and our feelings around it. You also mentioned that you fell prey to something a lot of women do, which is kind of that shame and scariness of the whole money conversation. You weren't always a financial journalist, right?
That's right. And I think the time in my life that I spoke to you about was actually all the way to the age of 48. So this is 22 years ago. My impression is that I had saved nothing for retirement. And that actually was an impediment for me even thinking about it. So I wasn't a financial journalist then. I didn't know a lot about how financial services and products work. And that also meant that I felt like I was walking into a dark closet. I didn't even know how to get started. Also, working as a journalist, some journalists make a lot of money. I wasn't. And so my salary too wasn't such that I felt maybe you get this sort of throwing up of hands and saying, like, how could it possibly help for me to put away $200 a month or $500 a month if I need $2 million to retire on? It feels like you're just throwing pebbles into the ocean. It's never going to have any effect. So I did start late. I will say that now. Would have been better if I'd started earlier. I'm a big believer in, it's not absolutely money in the market, it's time in the market, because that things that if you can start at 25, and I made sure my daughter did, try and make that happen, because it will serve you well over the course of the probably 40 years that you have to keep that money invested.
But I'm sure a lot of our listeners would be heartened to know that you didn't really start focusing on this until 48. And here you are, 66, a year into retirement.
Exactly.
What was the key there?
So part of it was this housekeeping. So looking into what I really did have, and I did have an old 401k that I didn't remember I was opening a new 401k, which is why I was talking to a financial advisor at all, because of a new job. And I had a SEP IRA, so a simplified employee pension. Is that what that stands for? Yeah, something like that. And so I would say, just to be transparent, I think I had about $28,000. So not nothing. And I was grateful that the financial advisors, like, you have no debt, you have this money, let's go. And it really did. I worked with a number of financial advisors over the year until I found one that was really the best fit for me and my husband. But I felt encouraged by that. No one was looking at me with this shock and horror on his or her face to say like it's too late. And I needed that.
Yeah.
Question. So you said that you didn't feel like you had very much saved, and then it turns out you had more saved than you thought. But where does the number come from when you said it wasn't very much? Was it just not because it wasn't a big number, or because you were hearing headlines or friends or whoever saying, oh, you need to have X amount by this age or in order to retire or something like that? Where did this concept of not very much come from?
Well, I think absolutely. If you look at, and again, I remember the commercials at that time were around like, what's your number? Do you remember those commercials?
Oh, yes. Yes.
We did an episode about that, actually.
A big bubble like following you around.
Yes. I want to see that episode. I want to listen to that episode because that was scary to me. So here I am with my $28,000 and change. And all of those numbers had many, many, many zeros after them. So I was supposed to saving $2.8 million by the time, say 20 years hence, if I was 48, retiring at 68. That's why it wasn't nothing, but it didn't feel like very much.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about the shame of it, right? Like, I think this is a roadblock a lot of women have it's not just the numbers on the page, but the feeling that the numbers give you and the story you tell yourself about that, right? You thought it wasn't very much money. Sometimes it's easier to put your head in the sand or turn around and focus on something else.
Exactly. And when you have that point, I think I had 2 children in college and a bit of a sandwich generation thing going on. It was really easy to deflect my gaze towards something that felt more immediate, that was not 20 years, something that was going to be urgent in 20 years' time. And I knew that was wrong also. Like, even that's the shame part of it. Because I don't know, shame might be too strong a word, but frustration with myself. Like, just, there's a phrase that I tell myself a lot, like, stop stopping. Like, I would think I was going to pay attention to this, and I didn't. So I felt frustrated that I hadn't done what I should have been doing all those years.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love that phrase, should.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have spent many times saying should doesn't, it's not a good word to use.
It's not helpful. It didn't help me. It didn't spur me to do. Really, the thing that spurred me was just that first conversation where it was like, I have more than nothing.
Yeah.
And nothing sometimes is better than an even worse case scenario, which is debt. So if you were quite a bit in debt, you would be thrilled to have nothing.
Right.
Only nothing, as opposed to less than nothing. So it was reframing, which I think is always super helpful. And it was conversation. So it was me not avoiding the issue, but sitting down and looking at it. And my husband is not of this mind either. Our approaches are so different, and we had to figure this out between us as well. He would fancy himself a stock picker.
Okay.
Gee, imagine that. A man thinks he's a stock picker. Gee, there haven't been any studies showing how often you see that and how successful.
So his one piece of success, and so this is why I think he feels gratified around that approach, is that he bought probably more Apple stock than we could afford in the 1990s. But it's interesting that so we're doing it differently. He worked for nonprofit. He did not have the benefit of a 401k. He did not open an HSA. He was not as interested in sitting with a financial advisor. I did the other way, where I really was like, let's construct a portfolio that will track with the markets and align with my tolerance to, like, all of the conversations you have, especially when you're first starting to invest. He's sitting there with his Apple stock. We kind of ended up at the same place in terms of the money we made.
Yeah. Hey, that's great. So let's get a little bit into the nitty gritty. You had this first conversation with an advisor. It helped you reframe. What were the to-do items you took from that meeting? What were the things that, the action steps that were suggested?
We really looked at how much I could contribute from my paycheck. So I had been coming from freelance with very uncertain income from month to month. My husband, too, working for a nonprofit, his income was also not of an amount that we could or didn't take a piece of it and invest it. So I have this big new corporate job. I took it, to be honest, because I needed to make more. I knew I needed to make more money. And with the kids out of the house, this was going to be my time to make more money. So there was a money goal there, maybe not as clearly as I'm stating it now. But when we really looked at my salary, can you contribute to the amount that your corporation will match? Like, let's start there, because otherwise you're leaving money on the table. Like, if I had told the advisor, I can't, he's not going to chastise me for leaving money on the table, but I could. I was like, okay, let's try it. And then, we would get to a couple years later, and all of a sudden I could increase the amount that I was investing because I had turned 50 or 55. There were ways in which, there's catch up provisions in investing. And we talked a little bit about HSA. If I could go on, I would go on for 4 days about HSAs. I think they're really great accounts.
Remind people, we do have an episode on that, but remind people what an HSA is.
So it's a health savings account. It really works. And in fact, it was only offered to employees that selected a high deductible medical insurance program. And I think that's true. Is that right? Yes.
That's the law.
That's the law. So it's not something that was imposed by my particular corporation. And so you have to, obviously you have to consider what your medical expenses are going to be. I have the great good fortune of being very healthy. My husband is too. We've encountered no incidents where having this high deductible medical insurance plan hasn't worked against us. So we could actually take I think $1,500 was being offered by my corporation to select this plan that cost them less too. So they were essentially just giving me more as an employee for choosing an option for insurance that was going to cost them less and me less. And I could take that money and put it in an account you invest tax-free, it grows tax-free. And it's one of the few, you tell me if there's others, that when you withdraw from it, provided it is for, I know, party, provided
Yes.
it's used for medical expenses, you never pay taxes on the gains. Even you can invest it like any other account, right? There's not like, it has to be only in bonds. Kevin, do I have that right?
Yes, legally, yes. Some companies may have offer an HSA plan that has restricted investment options, but that's more of a plan design. It's not a legal or regulatory thing.
And it's a good question to ask. So that
it's definitely a good question to ask. Yes. And here's another little tidbit that most people don't realize. I remember being shocked when I learned this. If you contribute to your HSA through your employer through payroll deduction, it also avoids payroll taxes, your FICA and your Medicare tax.
Yes.
Very few people know that. It took me years before I learned that, for example.
Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah. So, you could argue that it's quadruple tax-free.
Exactly. And I think after a certain age, you can use it for non-medical expenses, or do I have that wrong?
No, you always have to use it for medical expenses, but the definition of medical expenses is fairly generous.
Mm-hmm.
And let's face it, as we get older, it's not hard to find medical expenses.
Right. Exactly. So that was another piece of financial learning, another piece of my financial education. But I would say the kind of investing I did was pretty standard. I chose an annuity, deferred annuity. I have another annuity. I have the IRA, of course. When I retired, I rolled over my 401k into an IRA. So I guess I would say to people who are considering all this and thinking, I don't know what any of those words mean. I don't know how any of this works. It is actually so easy. I think it's so easy. Like you don't have to, I think you said on one of your podcasts, the machines do the math. It's not really about math.
Yeah.
Like it's not as if you need to be able to dust off your calculus. There you go.
Right.
You go. A calculator.
Right. Fancy calculator. That's the thing. Like, you don't have to earn an MBA in this stuff. You don't have to go get a PhD. You can learn a few things. Oh, how does this plan at work actually work? If I'm not at work, how do I set up a plan of myself? How do I do some basic kind of, I want to say like simple, maybe bare bones, but diversified investing? And then go ahead, set it up on auto and continue with your life as you are living it, right? It doesn't have to become an obsession.
I would say the change came, and I'm sure that it's, I think, of interest to your audience, but something that you work with women about is I had to figure out how, after I'd retired, no more salary, of course, except for the sort of bits and pieces I'm making with freelance work. And then when the markets turned against me in April of 2025.
Yeah.
So then I learned about something called sequence of return losses.
Yes.
That is, I think there's a higher level of, and in fact, I would love it if you guys would say it, and we're not relying on my understanding of it, but I did learn that it is dangerous if, in fact, you are confronted with needing to take money out that you didn't plan on, but because, say, the market turned against you or your access to employment turns against you early in retirement.
Yeah. Usually say the most risky day of your investing life is the day you retire, by which we mean you turn from accumulating money to actually spending that money. Because if that's the day the market tanks and you need to start taking out 40,000 a year, whatever number it is, when the shares are worth less and you need a certain dollar amount, you're going to have to sell more shares. So then it's harder to come back up.
Exactly. All those shares were going to be making money for you. I think of them as little money makers out there hustling on your behalf. And then they're not, because you've had to sell them because you needed a certain amount to live on.
Yeah. Kevin, your thoughts on that? And Kevin, keep it brief.
Sequence of returns? You think I could summarize that briefly and I wouldn't turn it into a dissertation? No, not me.
I have hope. I am ever hopeful.
No, but yeah, and it sounds, God bless our industry, we love to create the most complicated terminology for some of the simplest concepts out there. Really, all we're saying is, when it terms of sequence of return, risk is there's a probability of the market going down 20% in 1 year, one random year when you're retired. It's going to happen. It's virtually 100% that it's going to happen at least once, just how markets work. 20% of your initial nest egg is a much bigger number than 20% when you're on your deathbed and you've drawn down your assets. Okay, fine. Take 20% of $10,000. Go ahead. What do I care? Taking 20% of 2 million, that's going to leave a mark. And unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do to prevent that from happening. It's going to happen when it's going to happen. It's just, how do you have your retirement distributions set up?
Yeah. What do you have in place so that hopefully you don't have to pull from your stocks when the stocks are down?
Right. That wasn't too long-winded, was it, Stephanie?
No, that was
good.
perfect. And I think when I was interviewing Stephanie about this very issue, you jumped in with the importance of an emergency, like an emergency fund. And you hear that throughout your financial life, no more useful than when that, I like how you said that, Kevin, that it's going to happen in your financial life, that the markets are going to tank.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it happened to me within the first year. But with an emergency fund in place, I'm not having to sell assets at a devalued state.
Right, exactly. We still want to think always about what pots of our money are short term, I might need them, but I don't know when, and what are long term, right? So the long term money should be in the stock market, and the shorter term money probably shouldn't, because shit happens.
Yeah.
Boy, did shit happen.
Yes. So, Diane, what lessons do you have? What would you tell your 48-year-old self, or a 48-year-old listener who might feel like, oh, shoot, I'm behind. I haven't been paying attention. I got to get on it. What are your big takeaways?
I would say that in my case, looking back now from the perspective of 20 years on, I'm glad I started when I did.
Yep.
I'm glad I stopped not doing it. And it all worked out because at the point when I really started looking at it, I realized it's easy. There's lots of people that can help me with it. Small amounts invested really do. It's still 20 years. If I can free up, at that time, I was trying to free up about $2,000 a month. Was a stretch, but I was trying it over the course of and I ended up doing more than that towards the end because my salary grew and my ability to invest more grew. I did really well for myself because I started doing it. So it's really that someone will help you. If you don't understand something, lots of people are around to explain it to you. And every little bit really does help.
So, Diane, you also mentioned that you worked with several different financial advisors before you found one that you felt like was the best fit. We have talked about this in the past, but I feel like folks think that kind of all the financial advisors are the same. Whereas our point is, if you met one, you've met one, right? There are different styles, there's different service models, there's different personalities. What would you say about that?
I think you really do need, money is math, but it's also extremely intimate. And I felt like I needed someone who was going to be super responsive. And it could just be that I didn't understand how, say, the first couple worked with their clients, I didn't understand the difference between fee only then what works for me is to actually take a percentage of my earnings over the course of a year. But I had to understand that and also how I felt about that. And I also wanted someone who, this will sound old fashioned, but maybe I'm an old fashioned gal. I wanted to sit down with someone. This is going back some years, but I was offered telephone conversations. I think there is a kind of intimacy to Zoom calls, and that is good enough for me as well. But talking to someone on the phone and not being able to see him, the first two were men.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally finding someone who is 5 minutes down the street from me was really great to get to know this person and to actually sit in the same room. And my husband is very social, really likes to talk to people. I couldn't get him interested in listening to a phone call, but he likes this guy. And I'm sure we waste a lot of his time because we sit and talk to him, but he offers it. He's generous with his time. He does. And I imagine you too, you get to know your clients as well. Feel like that's part of it. That's sort of treating us as whole people, not just a number on an account.
Yeah, I love that. And I think what we try to tell people is try to get clear on what you want out of the relationship, how you want to interact, how often you want to interact, what you want to talk about, what you're hoping the person will do for you. Is it just investing, or is it kind of a broader whole financial picture? Mm-hmm. There's no right or wrong, right? There's people kind of who operate in lots of different ways. There's lots of clients who want different things. So I think it's often that self-knowledge is a key, like you pointed out.
Yes. And if you've never had, so I think probably the explanation is why it took a minute for me to find someone is because I didn't even know what I was looking for. I didn't even know how the process worked. So it took a bit of time to find the exact right fit.
And that's okay.
Well, we've talked about this before, is don't be shy about interviewing as much time as you want to take. If you want to interview 20 people, interview 20 people. And it's going to be, and you may find 10 that are absolutely brilliant. Mm-hmm. But I forget who mentioned personality, but personality matters, especially, like you said, we're talking about very intimate conversations mm-hmm. here. You kind of want somebody that meshes with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not to say the other people don't know what they're doing. It's just, it really is a comfort level. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'd like to think Stephanie and I agree on the technical stuff 99% of the time. We have different personalities.
I think that's a really good point.
So Diane, what's your next adventure?
If I had my way, and I think I might, at least for the short term, I don't miss winter in Connecticut. I do have a son that lives on the other side of the world. So I think what we're going to do next is take off. I teach at NYU. I teach media studies at NYU through the fall semester. I can usually leave the country by December 15th. And we are going to do it again. We're going to meet someplace. We haven't agreed on where exactly. And hopefully spend the 4 months until early spring traveling and then come back. And it's good for me to come back and settle back at home. And we rent out our house so that we have sort of the passive income and the house related expenses offset by a renter coming in. So that's my very loose plan.
I love it. And you have the flexibility to do that now, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I was actually struck by something how you phrased it in one of your articles, talking about as you're going into retirement, it's not so much that you're just flipping a switch off as far as working, not working. You're changing your lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the nice thing is you have a fair degree of control of how it changes. But please, do you want to comment on that at all?
I mean, it is, for me, this won't be for everybody, but I really if I missed anything, I miss my colleagues. I love them. But now they're my friends. I always say, you used to be my work friend, and now you're my friend. Like, you're not getting rid of me. But I miss the structure. So, and my husband, not so much. After we stopped traveling and when we settled back at home, and at first it was just so lovely just to have long days, taking care of things that just around the house. And then I thought, this can't be all. So I'm still in the discovery phase of what else should I be doing? Honestly, I thought there'd be more freelance writing. It's a little hard to come by these days. The industry is not as robust as it has been. There's lots of reasons why, one of them having to do with AI. I feel like I have my sort of life project of traveling and my big adventures. I feel like I need a work project. And I don't know if you hear that from your clients, or maybe you don't even talk about this kind of thing, but I do.
Oh, we do.
Yeah. I want to do something meaningful with my writing, with my ability to report. I worked at the US Open this year. Actually, I have for the last 6 years. I'm huge into tennis. I'd love to do that at other tennis tournaments. So that may be a thing, but I am a seeker. I'm seeking what it is that's going to replace or become the new work thing in my life.
And it's okay to sit with that for a while, right? And not have the answer.
And I do have the luxury of not needing, if I really needed a job, and I think I said this in the article, like I have a friend who got a job at Trader Joe's. Like she was a writer like me and was getting no assignments. And she's like, I love it. It's great. Trader Joe's is great. And I'm thinking, okay, I don't actually need the money enough to go work at Trader Joe's. I'd rather take the time to figure out what a real passion project of mine might be. But it's interesting to see the choices that women my age are making. And some of them are just finding that kind of occasional work.
Yeah. Diane, thank you so much for being with us. I so appreciate your radical transparency. I think it's going to be really helpful to our listeners. How can people follow you and learn more about what you're doing?
Oh, thank you for asking, Stephanie. I am online as Diane Dico, so DianeDico.com. It's also my Instagram handle, and it is how you find me on LinkedIn. I actually love it when people reach out with their stories. I do still write for AARP and for the Wall Street Journal, and happy to hear other people's ideas about, or maybe what they want to read. If a journalist were to pitch a story around someone's life, I'm always happy to hear those.
Awesome. We'll definitely include all those links in our show notes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Kevin, I love when people are willing to share their retirement stories with us. And Diane, and with her belief in radical transparency, sharing the actual numbers and the kind of turning points along her journey about preparing for retirement and then being in it. One of the things I'm taking away is the recommendation to stop stopping. Like something's stopping you from doing this thing you should do. Just stop stopping. That kind of was a little light bulb moment for me.
I like that phrase. And it's adjacent to what what probably the bigger point I took away was this intimidation she had or thought she had of, oh, I don't have a whole lot saved. And yet she had more than she thought, but still, even in late 40s, she was still able to put together what sounds like a sizable amount of money to say, okay, I'm done.
Right. At least enough.
Enjoy my life. And follow up, she was also talking about the different types of vehicles she was able to use.
Yeah.
And we've talked about these in previous episodes, but the big thing to me is there's multiple ways to save. So if you do one way, your 401k, there's still other ways to put in money and get matches or other benefits that is going to allow you to get more bang for your buck, so to speak.
Yeah. The thing that got her started was a conversation that was offered by her employer to meet with someone about the retirement plan, right? Like it can be a little thing that can get you started. And it was a reframing of her situation. And then I appreciate that she shared the different advisors they'd worked with. And her point was like, okay, figure out how they get paid. And if you're okay with that model of how they get paid, and then
yes,
how do they work? How do they meet with you? What is going to work for you? And it's okay if what works for you is not what works for your sister or your neighbor.
No, and I don't think that's something we can emphasize enough is everybody's different. Yeah. Not just your savings goals and your retirement goals, but how you like to work and who you want to work with. There's plenty of great advisors out there, but we all have different personalities. It's no reflection on others if you like one better than the other.
Yep, for sure. Awesome. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Diane di Costanzo. We'll talk to you next time. It's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from her. And I'm out of here in a hurry because I have a 12-week-old puppy who has a bladder that needs to be relieved.
Talk to you next time.
Bye.
Be sure to subscribe to the show and please share it with your friends. Show notes and more information available at takebackretirement.com. Huge thanks for the original music by the one and only Raymond Loewy through New Math in New York. See you next time.
Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group, American Financial Management Group, and Sophia Financial are separate entities. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual security. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. This information is not intended to be a substitute for individualized tax advice. Please consult your tax advisor regarding your specific situation.